Howdy there, folks. Pronogo coming at you with another cast over. We're continuing the Neblime versus Hamster series. This is Cosmonarchy, a giant revision of Starcraft 1, really a new vision for the RTS. Let's see what this particular match has in store for us as we head on to Derelict, a very standard 1 versus 1 map, 2 spawns, and it is by none other than community member Biddy. So Neblime will be the orange Zerg in the top right, and Hamster will be the yellow Protoss in the bottom left. I'll give you a brief moment in time to suggest which color specifically these colors are, because it's not just regular orange, it's not just regular yellow. And by the way, Hamster is confusing everybody. Now that you've locked in your thoughts, I'm pretty sure this is lemon. Oh, it's beige. I was so close. And actually, this is just regular orange. I had you guys baited the whole time. In Cosmonarchy, we've actually had Darkened Fantasies, one of the other contributing members of this particular project. He has contributed improvements to the way that the game works as far as colors go. He's changed the remapping a little bit so that the tones of the colors are a bit better and a bit better selected. And I think orange might have been changed. It definitely looks a bit darker than I would normally associate with regular orange, but I know some other colors did get changed. I think it was like blue and maybe purple. Anyway, he'll watch these, so he'll leave a comment and tell you guys exactly what he has changed. So far in this series, Neblime does lead 2-1. Derelict is a map that is much more standard, I think, in most people's minds than a map like Otherworld, which we saw previously, and a map like Infinite Velocity 2, or I guess what other maps did we actually see in the series so far? It was Sideshow and Impetus. So I guess so far we've mostly had standard-ish maps, you know, XY mirror maps, where it's bottom left to top right or bottom right to top left. Over here we have Hamster coming up and seeing what's going on. Instantaneously, a Kagrant mutates. I'm not sure why. Neblime is doing interesting things lately. He's been doing this pretty much all series long, making a macro hatch by the ramp or by the choke on the low ground of Impetus. And, okay, he's made the Kagrant because he's making a fast Ovaleth. And he'll be bringing this one down here to hold the inevitable natural. I'm a little bit perplexed about that because, and by the way, you can, of course, transport the Kagrant, which is the creep colony if you're using the Brood War term. But once it mutates into another structure, you need an enhanced version of the Ovaleth, the Ireleth, to actually mutate that over. So the Ovaleth actually mutates into another unit. Pretty much all Zerg units mutate into other Zerg units if they originally came from larva. So that's like a good benchmark to go by there. There are some exceptions right now, but presumably in the future they may not be. Now, a Nexus is starting, and actually Hamster is going to be able to expand faster than his Zerg opponent, which sounds a little bit strange, but if you remember the fact that he went for the Hatcherosk, the Kagrant drop, this might actually be a super greedy build for Neblime, although I can't really say super greedy because he's adding another static defense structure. But I was just thinking maybe he would even forego an early pool and go straight for a hatch. Now, there is a concern with that because you might just be able to walk by with these Dracodons, and I feel like maybe that's exactly what is being thought of here. You can see that the target over here for the Dracodons is on the way, and so there will be double Circuit, but it does feel like maybe Hamster can just walk by it and maybe contest that hatch. Now, indeed, it is going to be another hatch. Neblime being a little bit slow on the draw with his workers, and so it will be a while before he gets any sort of combat units out. It doesn't look like Hamster is going to punish for this. We do have scribes heading towards the middle of the map. Now, in Cosmonarchy, you can return to allied town centers, and this treasury here in the middle is actually like a outpost. It doesn't make workers for Terran, but Terrans can build it for cheaper than they can build the Ministry, which is their version of the command center. And when you have something like this, basically, it's like easier to destroy or whatever. And so Biddy has decided to place a neutral treasury here that you can return to, as well as these neutral geysers. And so you can see here, Hamster is known for using this. He used to play Zerg a lot. Now he's trying out Protoss, and he's doing the same exact thing as Protoss. So that's what's going on there. You can choose to cap these geysers in the mid-game. Protoss can do it pretty much any time, although it's pretty prohibitively expensive in the early stages of the game. And capping your geysers makes it so that they increase the amount of resources that they return. Now, this is a little painful losing the Ovaleth. I think maybe Neblime just assumes he's going to, but it does cost Vespene. So that's a pretty big deal there. Rescout from the Scribe, seeing what's going on over here, just scouts a lot of Kagra, and of course assumes that there are more static defense structures up. We have a Hydrith Den coming, so it will be a Den first as opposed to pool. You can throw out a lot of what you would expect out of like tech requirements from StarCraft 1. It really helps to think of Cosmonarchy as very different than StarCraft 1 in terms of the tech progression, what the units do, etc. Many of the old graphics that you're going to see, say like the Maverick, which is our name for the Marine, you know, okay, it has Stimpack still, but there are certain details about that are even different, where it has Stimpack from the get-go. You don't have to research it, because we don't have researches, we just have units with abilities, and most of them are passive abilities as opposed to actives. And so you don't need to worry about upgrades, you don't need to worry about supply. What you need to worry about is tech requirements, how to access your army in a, you know, expanding your power and stuff like that, and a lot of that does come down to RTS fundamentals, expanding your economy by building more workers, adding more production queues for your workers, and of course making new bases in general. So pretty fundamental stuff there. I'm sure everybody can agree that they're happy with the ideas of that. Now, I do want to explain this a little bit. The embassy is a structure that, as you can see, also produces scribes, which is the Protoss worker now. It's not the probe anymore. And it also produces the witness. So the witness, or observer if you're a Brood Warhead, has come in here, and it is going to go ahead and scout things out and see what's going on. As you can see, it moves a little bit faster by default, because again, we don't have like the speed upgrade or anything. And it's still a detector, it's still permanently cloaked, so pretty familiar. It might even have the same stats, I believe, as far as HP and shields. Although I might be wrong about that. I haven't actually looked at those in a while. And the Hydras are going to storm in the middle of the map, which is not being enforced by anything. But the fact that the Hydras are there, and the witness did scout that out and doesn't see any pool, that should signal to Hamster that he has an advantage for now, but that Hydras, which are much more potent versus armored targets, and thus much better versus Protoss, those are going to be a little bit of a different force to fight. He might think about adding more frontline to his army, which is kind of similar to Brood War versus, you know, PvZ. You don't really want to be using Dragoons, or in this case Dracodons, versus Hydras as the main sort of tour de force here. But the Izira cores come down, that's more of a frontline crowd control unit. Not super effective versus, you know, Dracodons, but, you know, this is going to absolutely run roughshod over this army. You can see Neblime has completely ignored the Zealot. And unfortunately for him, a lot of his Hydras ended up dying, so he's actually charging forward, trying to pick off as many of the heavy hitters as he can. But now there are Golems out, and the Golem Ecclesia synergy is super good. Ecclesiasts restore shields to targets that are near their victim, so allies near their victims of their attacks get shield regeneration. And then the Golem, when it gets hit by damage, releases shields in an aura to allies. So it's kind of like the Ecclesiast on hit, but on the Golem when the Golem takes shield damage. And obviously that effect is deactivated when the Golem loses all of its shields. So that was allowed. That allowed a Hamster to hold for a very, very long time. Unfortunately, though, I think this game is just about wrapped up, because there are a lot more Hydras streaming across the battlefield, and the front line of the Izira cores is going to stay alive for a very long time. Some scribe pulls have occurred. When that happens, you know it's pretty desperate. And at this point, he's basically on top of the production. There's a single pylon keeping it powered. There was a ward in place defensively instead of on the front line. Hamster's going to concede. Neblime goes up in the series, one more game. But we have plenty more to cast, so let's see what happens next time. All right, we are heading on to a map called Infinite Velocity 2. This is by the Beaver99. A lot of numbers in that name and map author. Neblime on the left-hand side as the purple-ish Zerg, and Hamster as the light blue Protoss. Again, cast your votes. What kind of color are we seeing here? You know, I would say edit your previous comment where you guessed the colors, but maybe I want you to spam comments and just leave a lot of new comments, and that will obviously encourage the algorithm or something. But Hamster is, of course, glacial. We saw this color earlier in the series. Neblime, on the other hand, ooh, could this be redwood? Could this be mahogany? I want to say redwood. Yeah, of course, my first instinct. Now, if you're just tuning in and you've never seen this project before, or you've seldom seen it, and you're still very new to it, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but we have like over 100 player colors in the game, and they are randomly selected. The randomness isn't pure. Obviously, then you could have like an off red against a red or something. So we do actually have RGB sorting and stuff to make sure that you don't have color collisions. That's apparently something that happens in the remaster. I watch a Diggity SC on YouTube. I watched him cast the Hasu League, which is like a mid-table or whatever for BSL. And it's pretty cool to see, you know, generally some of those casts. It's nice to see like a sort of like lower end of the people who take it competitive, people who take it seriously. Love to see stuff like that in general. And one of the things that I kept noticing is that he would have to like change the colors or whatever, and then he'd say, I can't change the colors back because if I do, it'll be yellow on yellow or something, yellow on beige maybe, stuff like that. So anyway, Infinite Velocity 2 is a map that has some pretty interesting characteristics about it. We do have a Hatteras coming at the ramp. This is pretty bog standard. We also have a much faster pool this time. Neblime was allowed to greed very heavily in the last game, and Hamster, I think, will be, you know, cognizant of that and thinking to himself, okay, I want to maybe punish that. This is where maybe the punish could come in. These atlases are Terran tech structures. They burn down, And when they burn down, they really, reveal this path, obviously. They unlock this path. You can also attack them faster, which is what Hamster is doing on his side. And you can see here, they're pretty beefy. They got a lot of armor. They got a lot of health. But they burn down at the 4 o'clock minute mark. So at 4 minutes, rather. So when 4 minutes on the clock, these will pop. And it looks like maybe Hamster's going to get a jump start on that. And that's one of the reasons why you want to scout on this map with a ground worker, even though the ground path distance is enormous, is because it does give you access to, knowing whether or not your opponent is actually breaking these down. So a couple Zealots are coming on. They're talking about some bug that was presumably fixed already. Meanwhile, we have the Nidus. This Nidus is usable by any player because it's neutral, and any race because we changed that, of course, in the internal. So you can actually use that if you you have an allied Terran player and you put down a Nidus, that can happen. So you can see here the Atlases are much harder to deal with, or much easier to deal with, rather. In the later stages of the game, the Atlases are getting chewed through now. Hamster typing, so he's been distracted by Neblime, and so as a result, with his antics, he may not be able to get too much done over here. Now, there are some Quasis on the other side. They are going to go ahead and unburrow, but you really need Zethicors to fight Zealots because of their armor. Quasis do not do very well versus them. And so Hamster could be doing a little bit better of a job focusing down the Zethicors. It looks like he is going to just narrowly be able to do it. And yeah, okay, he's still got 2 Zealots out. Now, we still have more Zeths coming, 4 more pairs, in fact. So it really is about minimal economic damage. If Neblime can take minimal economic damage from these Zealots, at that point he might be able to get a little bit deeper into the game. And it does feel like Hamster flubbed the micro a little bit there. He might have just been able to focus down, at least with these low HP Quasis. That's a bit more significant because Zethicors are much worse at dealing with... Oh, are we going to see? Okay, they're both destroying each other's Nidus exit. So at that point, it kind of tells you, okay, they're both done with it. They don't want to get counter-rushed. Embassy on the way immediately as the response. Meanwhile, a Scribe engaging the Drilleth up there, blocking the top right expansion. A Zealot or 2 are going to be dispatched to deal with that. And yeah, of course, Neblime is going to be sending his forces across the map on the ground just to contest his opponent, see if he can't get expansion tempo. His top left base is indeed operational already. And yeah, catching back up in workers. So I think we're all set on that front. It seems like everything will be just fine. The next sort of early game test will be whether or not this attack force can do much. It is kind of sizable. I mean, I was talking earlier about the Quasilis count, and those do really well versus workers specifically, whereas Zethicors are a little bit better at dealing with Zealots, although obviously you can see there they did struggle, especially if the Zealot count gets high enough. Embassy has completed, and it will indeed just be workers, so Hamster looking to continue succeeding in the worker count. He's got a lattice on the way. That's for pretty basic tier robotics. Not a complete wall, of course, so the Zealots are going to engage. 2 more just popped out, so this will be pretty easily held. Quasis will now have to fall back. Feels like maybe Neblime could have dove in with 1 Zealot or something. Sorry, Zethicor, and then maybe just scouted or something like that. That might have been a better use of his units. But nonetheless, both of our players disengaging. Defenses being erected. We actually have a very fast Vornath Pond. So this could be I'm seeing the gas banked. And this could actually end up being 3 pairs of Nathricors so far. Every pair is 50 gas. So this could be a pretty big deal. I mean, you're looking at Zealots and Legionnaires. We have no anti-air defenses, no... okay, we've got some Ecclesias coming. Those can be really, really good versus Nathricors because Nathricor is a melee unit. And again, just like I said in the previous match on Derelict, Ecclesiasts have that shield regeneration boost when they attack. So you get a flat amount of shields back. And it also, if you haven't taken damage, it jumpstarts flash shielding, which is a mechanic for Protoss that makes it so they regenerate shields at a rate of 10 seconds, or 10 shields per second when out of combat. So getting your shields healed will jumpstart that mechanic and treat it as if you were out of combat. And so it instantly sort of short-circuiting that cooldown, if you will. And indeed, we do have 7 pairs of Nathricors on the way. Neblime has banked a lot of Vespene for this. And so if this does not end up working out, it could be really, really awkward for him. Now, at the same time, you could see a counterattack come out from Hamster. He's got a lot of Ecclesiasts, so he's not going to be in danger of losing his attack force. In fact, his combat units here can easily overwhelm the Circuits, the Quasis, and probably the Nats all at once if they all fought at the same time. We still don't have any anti-air defenses, and the Lattices are building Golems, so this is very clearly like a pretty heavy commit. And the Nathricors are moving across the map. Again, that's 7 pairs. Each purchase of a Nathricor is actually 2. It's 2 per egg. In fact, everything out of the Vornath Pond is 2 per egg. So when you make a pool or a pond, all of the units that you train from larva are 2 per egg, and then you can turn your Zethicors into a Vorvicor, which is an enhanced version of that. We did see that very briefly at in the Otherworld match, actually. So here come the Gnats. We've got loads of Wardens coming online, but I think they're a little bit late. And also that redundancy pylon, okay, now it's kicked in a little bit. We have Zealots coming, so nothing out of the gateway is going to be particularly useful. No cancel on these Wardens. Nothing back here because there was not even a pylon. And yeah, he's not ordering up anything for the counterattack. He could be making idols out of the lattice. That would obviously do some pretty good job. Yep, now he's thinking about it. Now, at the very least, these pylons are going to power this lattice. So the fact that it's double means that, okay, there has been some efficacy there. Now, the Ecclesiasts, keeping the Zealots and Legionnaires alive, 3 pairs of circuits, or 3 circuits themselves, have been erected. The Golem's doing a great job of soaking up a lot of damage as well. Unfortunately, one of the Ecclesiasts was focused down by the Circuit. I'm not sure if that was intentional or just happenstance. And there's only one idol with this force, and now all of the workers are body blocking this attack force. The Golem doing its best to deal some splash damage. We have more units coming in. Hamster has forgotten about critically a pair of Zealots and Ecclesiast over there. That whole time could have been helping out this force. If we look back at the base trade on this side, okay, the Nathicors are scouting out for more stuff. They have indeed depowered the lattices just in a moment. So I don't know where those golem or those idols actually went. One of them is over here. It seems like it's in total disarray. He never finished off the second circuit. I think Hamster's done for. I think this is pretty much game over for him. He wasn't able to successfully kill off the Gnats. He only has 9 workers. He's decided to recommit. And despite the fact that he had a significantly inferior force, he was still able to pick off more and more workers. Neblime down to 15. If he can repower this stuff and keep his Nexus alive, it feels like Hamster might be able to stay in this game, but it's very, very unlikely now that the Nexus is down, especially since he's losing workers. He sent them off to this location. The Nathicors are just going to tear him apart. More of them scoping around. Ecclesiasts falling back. They're a little bit too slow to make it all the way across the map, and yeah, with all those workers dead, it feels like Hamster has to concede this particular match almost certainly. Down to 1 worker. And they're not killing this Nexus. He can rebuild, but again, you're talking about a player who's still mining versus a player who isn't. And the Ecclesiasts are now going to be the next victims. This is clearly too many. That is going to be GG. And Neblime, he takes a 4th win in this set. Now we have one more game, so Hamster can get on the board yet again, but we will save that for the final video for this set. I hope you guys have enjoyed the set so far. And yeah. Stay tuned for one last video on this before we move on to the next round of casts to happen. And also, remember, if you think you can throw down and put on a better show than these guys, or if you just want to try putting on an even worse show, which is somehow better because it's funnier, these are things that you can do. Check us out. And don't be shy. We'll be around for a long, long time. Hop in on our Discord. Join us on Coffee if you want to support it from the financial front. And we'll be seeing you guys soon.